Hello. Salutations to the divinity within you. My name is John Kuykendall, and I intend to make one podcast every week about Christian mysticism, or being spiritual, not religious. Being spiritual is about experiencing the moment and enjoying the pleasing and pleasant qualities that come with being here now. It is not about beliefs and loyalty to a creed or person. As Ecclesiastes says in 3:12, I know that there is nothing better for men than to be happy and do good while they live. People from all ages and for all ages have been accumulating possessions, achieving status, and success to experience happiness. But they miss the mark chasing these minor issues when it is about love and just being ourselves. We are human beings, not machines, so we just need to learn how to be. Just being who we are and what we are is the meaning of life. This is the reason for living, and then we give it away to everyone around us in the moment. This expands our small world to include those who are different than we are, because it is love. Christian mysticism, or being spiritual, is not about laws and punishment as in religion, because they are the lowest possible forms of education. Many churches have us enter and leave trying to grasp God in a tight fist in our hand, using our mind. Rules, laws, punishment, and commandments, when we just need to open our soul to the infinite, the Christ mind or Christ consciousness. It doesn't matter what we call it. All religions have a base in the spirit or spirituality, but I will be focusing on Christianity and the path within Christianity called Christian mysticism. Being spiritual is opening and accepting the divinity within by removing the obstructions we have placed in our mind that keep us from the Spirit. Jesus was a great example of freedom in a pure mind that demonstrated love, compassion, unity, and salvation. The sad thing is that most Christians follow a narrow belief that gives them a superiority complex, that makes them feel superior and separate. Hitler gave the Germans a superiority complex, so he can manipulate them easily en masse. And that is what many churches do. Martin Luther King Jr. said, "We must face the sad fact that at 11 o'clock on Sunday morning, when we stand to sing, 'In Christ there is no east or west,' we stand in the most segregated hour of America." Narrow-minded Christians have used the church to spread narrow beliefs, but eventually we will find our narrow beliefs are not sufficient. Hopefully we realize this before they transform us into extreme beliefs that separate us from God, love, humanity, which misses the mark. Christian mysticism does not destroy Christianity. We are familiar with the rituals, the symbols, or the history, because it just takes us deeper. Being spiritual only helps us approach the ultimate truth of life and increase the scope of awe in our religion. It is like climbing a mountain and getting a new, more spacious view with free will and free choice, not with commandments and punishments. Christianity brings people to the mountain, and spirituality increases the connection, making the Christian environment richer and more meaningful. Mysticism does not belong to just Christianity because being spiritual is part of our human experience, which is the main purpose of most religions and traditions. It does not come from religion. It comes from the divinity within us, or our soul. But by Being deeply involved in religion can point to the soul, which is beyond our mind and its beliefs. The point where we start in Christianity still exists and is still a part of our culture, but it appears smaller as we climb the mountain and awaken to an all-inclusive and an all-encompassing comprehension. We climb from learning about the events of Jesus to an actual spiritual experience where inert stories are transformed into an exciting encounter with the mind of Christ in meaning and love. The higher up the mountain, the more we climb into the heart of Jesus and experience His love, unity, and humility. The spiritual experience encountered are just resting places where we drink from the spring of love within and do not worry about the tarnished container, our body outside. There is no path to love. There is only a discrete, inconspicuous experience of love, peace, and happiness. These resting periods in the space of happiness are important, so we love what we are doing and are motivated to go higher. There is a story titled A Well-Worn Tattered Coat that expresses the divinity within each one of us, our soul that is not a part of us, but who we really are. There was a woman whose husband died suddenly, and she faced a depressing situation because the family owed a lot of money, and she had no income to support herself or her small child. The banks hassled and bothered her, taking away all her material things from her and her young boy, so they had nothing for the future. Afraid of losing the most valuable thing that was passed down in her family, she sewed it into the sleeve of an old coat because she knew the banks would never intend to take it. She endured many difficulties and suffered for her son until she broke down and eventually died without telling her son about the jewel. The boy ended up homeless and had no family to depend on. He only had the old tattered coat that the collection agencies didn't want. He worked odd jobs and lived on the streets, staying outside or in a cheap room. He was exposed to hardships and distress, but he endured working day to day, going through whatever the day offered him, similar to the life Jesus lived with suffering and pain. After surviving many years, carrying on what life brought him, he was working and tore the sleeve of his coat and found the irreplaceable jewel within, which became the foundation for his happiness. The story tells us that we are a source of happiness within us, even if we feel depressed and disadvantaged. This is because we all have a soul within that the collection agencies cannot touch. In fact, no one can harm who we really are in spirit. The jewel represents the perfect nature of our true self, the spirit or consciousness we are born with, and carry with us if we are aware of it or not. When we become mindful of the jewel, we realize in a single moment that the consciousness of divinity within contains the joyous wisdom that is beyond material value, what we Christians call heaven. The divinity within changes our consciousness, where we stop thinking about the gross physical matter around us and think about the spiritual consciousness in the present moment. Jesus was hinting at this in his parables, and we can experience it in the ecstasy of the divinity within. This is where the Christ mind, or Christian mysticism, is the science, and the spiritual experience is the art. The more we identify with the divinity within, the more we become peaceful, happy, and overflowing with grace, which develops our consciousness and radiates out to the living things and people around us. Becoming aware of the soul at any time, good or bad, frees us from the delusions of the mind, so we can be filled with supreme bliss and fall into harmony with the universe. The people who experience the Spirit are mystics and the pioneers to first experience the spiritual world by leaving the material world. Artists, scientists, and mystics can be found in ancient times, medieval times, and modern times, talking about this union of consciousness with the consciousness around us in unity and love. Bliss is not an emotion or sentiment, because it is a state of being where everything is loved, and this puts us in a state of grace, a state of unity. Don't be afraid to follow your love, because it is what leads us to bliss, and it is what opens the door that our mind thinks are not there. Our mind thinks there is not a door, there's nothing there. Therefore, we don't know what we are getting into when we follow our love, because it puts our vibration in harmony with the universe. We transcend everything as we go beyond the mind, beyond our thoughts, to experience joy and happiness. For some, it is a passing passion, and then they return to more practical things. But the mystics continue to go deeper into pure consciousness. We all, at one time or another, fall in love. It is inherent inside us to be in harmony with the universe and the Absolute. Eternity is not something in the future. It is happening now in unity with everything, past, present, and future, in the here and now, in this very moment. We can buy medicine, but that alone does not make us healthy. Just because we can buy a bed and a big house, but it does not guarantee a good night's sleep. But when we arrive at a state of bliss, we are content, happy, and in the present moment without a yearning to be in charge, to be accepted, or to pass judgment. Because love is a cornerstone of being in bliss. It doesn't come from doing things, but just overcoming the obstructions that keep us from love and being ourselves. This calls for our conscious participation, where we become aware that the life we are living is speaking through us, guiding us, and showing us the way. This is not what our mind tells us to do, but a listening to the silence of the soul, where we neutralize the infinite. We are not pushing our way forward in the universe, because all we have to do is flow with the universe, not fight it, and that is what the soul teaches. Jesus said, "Let thy will be done." As conscious human beings, we identify with the soul, our true self, the inner light, the spirit or divinity within, whatever we want to call it. It is the truth that sets us free. This is our center, our fixed point, where we get our bearings away from the physical world and have the time to withdraw from problems and hassles in order to bathe in love and light. This spirituality, where we are empowered and find our spiritual and physical gifts, it's not about saving the world, because it is about love and finding the heart of our own identity so we can offer that to the world. The soul is different from the mind, because the soul is silent in peace, unity, and love within each one of us, while the mind is looking for security, earnings, titles, and advancement. It is up to us, and it does not matter if we want status from the mind or clarity and peace from the soul. If it is our true calling to be free and let be, as we don't need physical rewards to motivate our ego mind, our soul is not an object, an ambition to be achieved, but a gift that we receive by becoming aware of it, and the joy radiating off of it by just being. It is not a God out of our reach, calling us to become something we are not, but a silence within us, attracting us to be the person we are meant to be. St. Francis of Assisi said it in his testament, "No one showed me what I had to do. I have done what is in my mind. May Christ teach you what is in yours." So St. Francis is not trying to convert us, make us what he thinks we should be, because he is giving us the space and freedom to be our true self. Aristotle said, "Knowing yourself is the beginning of all wisdom." But in life, I would have to say that sometimes we have to lose ourselves before we begin to understand who we are. This path within is only the journey, because all the phenomena we seek in the external world is a part of it. We find without seeking within all paths that represent our life. As we go in life, every experience, including the negative ones, teach us something, and we don't learn from them. And if we don't learn from them, they repeat. The most important thing is to walk with joy and freedom by letting go of fears, anxieties, difficulties, and problems. Being spiritual and not religious is being in unity with the universe and nature, while Christian mysticism is not thinking in the past or dreaming of the future, but living in the present moment of Christ consciousness.